All right, and we are live. Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. So, of course, you know what's going on. This is Listen Up Maryland. As always, we have a local business, local guest joining us that we love to celebrate and spread the word to help get his name out there because he is returning from a long journey across the world, it sounds like. But as always, we are doing this live. We do this that way. If you're watching, you can join and ask any questions that you might have, and we can get them answered immediately. Or if you're watching the recorded version, all of his information is in the comments, so you're more than welcome to reach out to him personally and get it answered later on. So let's get the show started. I am introducing James Matthew Brown today, who's got quite the interesting lifestyle / career. Do you want to go ahead and get started? Kind of tell us who you are?
Sure. My lifestyle is pretty boring, but how I got here, I think is more interesting. But so I'm here today to talk about a course that I've designed and just launched called the Yoga Starter Course, and it's designed to get people to have a way that they can reset when they need it. And so how I got to that, starting at the beginning, I grew up here in Calvert County, in St. Leonard, on a farm in Huntingtown, and then in St. Leonard, and then I knew at an early age that I was interested in like, I guess just to keep it short, like the philosophy of behind things, and I was really interested in religion. My family was really Catholic, and we were very active in the church, and I went to Our Lady Star of the Sea and Solomon's, and really loved it. But then as I got older, the Catholic Church just didn't really sort of answer the questions that I had about the world in the way that I needed them answered. And so I kind of floundered for a while and sort of put it on the back burner. And then when I was in my 20s, I went to a yoga class. And this was before yoga was really very popular. It was around, it was in the mid 90s. And so there wasn't much yoga out there. And what was out there tended to be taught pretty well by people that had practiced it for a long time. And there are lots of different styles at the time. But anyway, I went to a class that turned out to be what's called an Iyengar class. I didn't know that then, but it means that you really focus on the alignment of what you're doing. Like you'll do a pose for quite a while and really refine these really, really super fine points of it. And I thought it was so boring in the first class. I just, like, we're pressing the outer shin in and spreading the toes. And like, I thought we were going to be doing like all this crazy stuff. And that's what I wanted to do. And I thought it was stupid. But I thought I was going to stay till the end. Well, by the end of the class, I felt so good. And I didn't know why. Like I felt like I was in the right place. Like I liked everybody that was there. And like I felt really connected in a way that I really had never felt before.
Yeah.
And I learned later in life, I went on obviously to teach all this, that a lot of people feel that way. And what I learned, it took me many years to learn, is the reason I had that experience in that class is because I was concentrating on something that was interesting to me. I mean, the teacher, even though I was saying the class was stupid and boring, the teacher still made it interesting to me, even just because I wanted to do what the teacher was saying made it interesting to me, Right. There was that motivation. So what happened in that class, which is what I'm still trying to emulate, is that you take something that is of enough interest to a person that they'll pay attention to it and take them through the process of really focusing sharply for a while on it. And that's really what gives you the effect of feeling like renewed and grounded and all of that stuff. So anyway, that was the beginning of my yoga experience. And so I worked in nightclubs then. I had a nightclub in DC that I ran on U Street when U Street was first enjoying a resurgence.
Nice.
The guy Joe Engler owned a bunch of theme nightclubs there. He just passed away last year, but he's well known for a lot of DC nightlife themed clubs. And so I took over one of his establishments for a while, and that's when I discovered yoga, is when I was in the nightclub life, and it really the yoga really showed me that the nightclub life wasn't healthy. Like, it made me aware of my breath, and like made me appreciate my body and like what I was doing with it, and made me want to go to sleep at night instead of stay up. And so I left it, and I went and worked at the Inn at Little Washington out in Washington, Virginia, the famous restaurant out there, for about a year while I figured things out. And then I returned to DC and started teaching privately. And so that escalated really quickly when I first started teaching. So I rented a studio at the Washington Ballet, and my friends came to that, and most of them were musician people that I knew from the nightclub world. And they were really early supporters, bands, members of Fugazi and Bikini Kill and The Makeup and Unrest were my first students. And I didn't really know who those bands were, but apparently a lot of people do. They were just my friends, and I still wouldn't recognize most of their music, but they supported me. And so that's important, because I started teaching privates, and then the Red Hot Chili Peppers came to town to play. I can't remember where they played, but one of the really huge venues then. And the Guy from Fugazi, Guy Picciotto, took me to see them. And the Chili Peppers really loved Fugazi. That's why I was mentioning them. Fugazi is and so they had us backstage afterwards, and I met them all. And this was on the Californication tour,
Nice.
which was that was the number one band in the world, and they were like having the number one album in the world that summer. So it was really exciting. I'd just been teaching briefly. I also was teaching the Vice President Al Gore's family privately. At that time, they were my second private clients, but I was teaching Tipper all through before the campaign, and then all through the campaign. And so this was happening. And then the Chili Peppers came to town, and I met them, and I talked to Flea. We had dinner backstage afterwards, and Flea told me that they had just fired their third tour yoga teacher, and they were on their fourth one. And I saw opportunity. I thought, well,
right,
they're going to fire this one. so I made sure they had my contact information. Which is
sign me up so I can be fired next.
What's that?
I said, sign me up so I can be fired next.
Right. And so I made sure they had my phone number. One of the teachers wouldn't give them this chart that had the poses on it. And I thought, why not give it to them? And so I faxed it to them. That's how that was my in. Is I said, oh, I have it. I'll send you the chart. It's this well-known diagram that people using. I don't use it anymore, but people used to. Anyway, I faxed it to them the next day and made sure all my contact information was on there, and it worked. Three weeks later, I was a dog walker in DC then, and I was coming home from dog walking, and I get a voicemail from Flea in his funny voice, asking if I wanted to come on tour, and I went on. I was on a plane the next day and met them in Canada, I think, and I didn't get fired. I just want everybody to know. I was, for the rest of the tour, I was the teacher. And then when the tour ended, also Mr. Gore, who was running for president, didn't become president. And so, and if he had, I would have stayed here to support, the family. That would be, I would love the people that support the most powerful man in the world to feel connected,
Right.
I thought that would be a good thing for me to do as a yoga teacher. I'd be really proud of that, but it didn't happen. So the Chili Peppers said, come to LA, you can keep teaching us. The tour was over. And so I did. I went to LA, and then I stayed there for 15 years. And when I was there, so I went for the Chili Peppers to teach them. But when I was there, I found this teacher named Mati. And at the time, she ran what was the number one studio really in the world in Los Angeles. So this is when a few years after it was called Yoga Works. And so Yoga Works went on to become a much bigger company. But at this time, it was just 2 studios in Santa Monica, California. it went on. She sold it years later. Spoiler alert. She sold it for many millions of dollars years later, and it had an IPO and had venture capital behind it and everything.
Oh, wow.
That was after she left the company. When I got there, it was just 2 little studios, and so she was so before that, I'd had different teachers, and like I didn't consider anybody like my main teacher. And when I met her, I thought, this is the person that I really want to learn from. She was very, very direct and very. It wasn't at all about her. It was just about what she was teaching me, and that was it. And not she. I didn't realize how unique these traits are, but she also. But the reason I'm going through them is they really are infused into how I teach now. Mm-hmm. Is that the content really of what you teach? What I strive to do and what she did is that you're just taking people through the process of somehow finding those periods of focus, and then whatever needs to happen with that student will happen as a result of it. In other words, you don't say do this and you're going to feel this way. It's just because we're not qualified to know those things of exactly what's going on with a person and exactly what's going to happen. It's just that there's this really effective process of somehow stilling the mind by focusing it on something for a few minutes at a time that has quite a positive impact. So anyway, I taught Mati. I met Mati, and so with her, the studio started becoming more and more well known, and its teacher training became more and more popular. And then she sold the company and left it, and I stayed there. And there were a few teachers that were identified as the company was expanded that could teach the teacher training. And so I was one of them. And so that's when I started traveling around the world and teaching the teacher training, which I did for about 10 years. I taught theirs, and then I taught my own content. But that gave me exposure when I traveled to how different people are outside of LA. That people come to yoga for different reasons, and so that's when I started to develop my own teaching methodology, which now this is almost 20 years later. It's been quite fully formed for a while, but it really pares it down to that one essential element of striving to focus the mind. And so a skilled and experienced teacher can use lots of different modalities to bring a person to that place. So if you're practicing with me, what we'll do is physical poses. So like the things that people sort of expect when they're thinking about yoga. But those things can be really easy. And I think that's one thing that people don't understand is that it doesn't have to be something that requires any flexibility or any strength. That it really is just something that should be interesting enough to you to pay attention to. And then within that, there is lots of opportunity to actually make physical changes in the body. Like if you want your shoulder to be more mobile or more strong or balanced, there's certain ways you can do that while also doing something that's interesting and pleasant. And so most people that come to the practice do want that, even though I'm saying, it's really just about focus. If they haven't experienced that a lot, they may not be interested in that at all. They may really just want the physical thing. So, and that's what I'm used to, and that's what I typically teach to. But it's really easy because you just make the physical thing interesting enough that they have to pay attention to it. And so, so anyway, that sort of sums up, I guess, my whole teaching methodology. And not to give every detail of my career, but I traveled around the world teaching that, and then I created a digital, an online school that is used for teacher trainings in several different companies. The content is so in a big the biggest yoga franchise in Scandinavia, and then at Honor Yoga in the United States, it's the online curriculum segment of their teacher training programs. So it's in use for that. So the first 20 years of me teaching was sort of all focused toward that, toward teaching people how to teach this methodology.
Yeah.
And that was great. But then I got quite burnt out on that and started being really not able to deal with how yoga was being represented in the media and in marketing. It just became so silly, I think, to me. I mean, it's fine that superficial things exist. They will with anything that's deep, you know. But that became the defining qualities of yoga in most people's minds, is that it's about stretching and like it's a certain lifestyle and all of that. And so it came to a point where I was just tired of fighting that battle, you know, putting 90% of my teaching energy into unselling what the people had already understood it to be. So I quit for a long time, and I just sold my online stuff to different franchises around the world, and so that's what I've done for about 8 years. And so for the past 8 years, I spent a lot of time alone and in solitude. And then when the pandemic happened, it was really interesting because I was a few years into being spending most of my time alone. When the whole world,
you got a jump start on COVID.
I got a jump start on it. So I thought you'd like to experience what I've experienced now, which is like what life is like when you're not constantly being stimulated by stuff, you know? And so I really feel like the experience that we all just went through together of, you know, which is for the most part in terms of how it affects lifestyle is over. But I think all of us went through something. And I really feel like people came out of that with more of an understanding of the importance of grounding, of being grounded. Like one thing I think that people got to experience that maybe they hadn't is being home a lot.
Yeah.
You know, being in one space all the time, and how, I mean, that of course can be maddening, but
right.
If it's not maddening, something that my yoga practice has given me for many, many years is a sense of grounding. And when I looked around pre-COVID, I didn't see other people even wanting that, you know, like almost like it's a bad thing to be anchored and stay still.
Well, I think you're right, because I mean, I'm nowhere near what you are, but I do yoga like once a week at the gym, and I've done it since, I don't know, probably like 10 years, but on and off. The first time I ever did it was with an ex-girlfriend, and it was actually a P90X yoga thing that we did on a video. And at that time I was, I don't know, in my early 20s, and, you know, I was a typical guy. You hear yoga and you're like, you know, like you said, it was hard to overcome what people think of yoga, especially guys. Like, guys just think it's for a bunch of hippies. It does nothing for you. And like, you know, everyone loves to mock namaste. I don't even know if I said it right because it's just mocked so often, but
don't say it. You don't have to say it.
But I mean, I went from the P90X, which was very intense. Like there was no like pauses. It was just an hour straight. And I mean, I've always lifted. I played football, basketball. So that was the first time I was sore in certain muscles that I didn't even know existed after 20 years of being somewhat, you know, active person. And I'm like, what is that? And it was just a mind blower that this stretching for an hour just beat me. Like I was exhausted, and I couldn't understand when I was laying there at the end of it just how peaceful I felt. Like you said, like at the end of an hour of yoga session, it's almost like yoga and meditation mixed together, to where if you do it to where you're doing the breathing correctly as the stretches are going, it takes me 10-15 minutes to get off the mat. Like, you know, I tell people you feel like you're stoned almost for a little bit, and it's just so relaxing. And someone who lifts a lot, I'm always hurting myself because I don't worry about the smaller muscles, which, you know, I'm just a dumb gym guy. So as I get older, yoga has just made such a big difference in my life, and people are just afraid to try it because it does have that stigma to it for, you know, it's not the manliest thing to do. But I think it's changed a lot in the past 10 years. So I'm glad to see that you're coming back to teach people how to start, because that's the scariest part. Nobody wants to be the new person, especially a guy. Well, like you walk into a yoga class, you think that everyone's like, look at this creep. That's not the case at all.
But just based on what you just said about your own experience, it's, you know, the point is you can fit first of all, P90X is not shabby yoga. Like I engaged in P90X stuff myself, and they knew what they were doing. The yoga, like it wasn't just imitating the shapes that they think are yoga. Like I think there was some intelligence behind what they were doing. My point is, you can put if the objective is to focus, you can put that into any kind of package. And so the yoga that I did for years was really athletic. And so the stuff, if you did it in P90X, probably was it's called Ashtanga. And that's what I taught the Chili Peppers and Sting. And I think almost all my clients, most of the time I taught them this thing that was really, really super athletic and difficult. Like they would be really sweating. But it still was about focus. Like in this athletic style, in every single breath is assigned a movement, and the movement is very specific, and your eyes even look at a certain point. And so, yes, we're doing it so that we get like a rockin' bod, and it's fun because you do more and more challenging things. So after doing that for a few years, you're doing like really super crazy things. So it was fun for those reasons, but the thing that was underlying it all was you couldn't do it if you weren't focusing, and so that's where the real impact comes from.
Yeah.
So
I mean, just the benefits that people don't understand from yoga are, I think, uncelebrated, to where the mental health. Like I think that's when I really got back into yoga, was during COVID, because like everyone else, I was stuck at home. Actually, we were fairly busy in real estate, but I couldn't go to the gym anymore. So everything I did was on YouTube, and I got back into it, and now I go to the classes. And I mean, just the meditation, like COVID brought along so many terrible things to this world, but I think that solitude was needed for a lot of people, because we don't have that. Like, unless you're on tour with Chili Peppers and living your lifestyle, most people are waking up and angry because they're getting into rush hour traffic, and they're angry at work, and then they're angry on the way home, and just so caught up in trying to survive. Like nobody really steps back to just soak in life, to enjoy the moment. And I think that's a big part of what yoga does. Like even after a hard workout, you enjoy it. Like it's not like, oh, I'm so exhausted, I don't want to do that again. Like, man, I can't wait till next week. Like I feel great.
Yeah. So that was the big thing that led to the yoga starter course. Was I I was focused on teacher training stuff for a long time, and then I had quit, and I was just doing selling my online content to other franchises. And I came home. So I was living in France, and my visa had expired, and I had to come home to renew it, which was challenging during COVID. But managed to do it, and I'd been living in Europe for almost 4 years and hadn't been back to America that much, mostly because COVID was 2 years of that. And when I lived in France, and I lived in London before then, and in Stockholm before that, and in all those places, I was spending a lot of time alone. And so I came home to renew my visa at Christmas. And so I came for the holiday, and I was going to stay for like 2 months, because it takes a while to renew your visa when you're in the country. And I looked around, and I couldn't believe how much stimulation people here are subject to all the time. Like, I can't believe it. I turned on I got a TV, because that's what you do so I decided to move, by the way. I left that part out. I really loved it. I loved being near my family. I decided I was finished with isolation, and it was time to engage with family in America again. And also, I really, really love this area so much, and I always have. But I just didn't live here. But now, I can work online, so I can live anywhere. So I want to live here. So anyway, I'm living here, and I'm looking around. So I got a big TV, was my point. So I got a big TV, because that's what you do here, and it was on sale. And it's really quite large. And I can't believe the commercials here are so disturbing. Like, they're all for drugs, first of all. Like, they're all for psychiatric and drugs for lifestyle issues. And I mean, I guess half of them you don't know what they're about.
Yep.
And so you're supposed to find out what the drug's about and then tell your doctor that you want to take this drug. Like there seems to be this whole culture around that that's quite huge. And anyway, I've gone on a tangent, but
I'm with you on that one, because it's very disturbing that
it is disturbing. Like
we are one of 2 countries in the world that allow marketing for drugs. And like you said, like I'm supposed to walk into the office and educate my doctor. Well, I saw this commercial. They look very happy. Can you make me happy? Like,
yeah,
it's very disturbing.
I had the same doctor since I was like 20, and she does not take instructions from me. That's for sure. She makes it very clear who's in charge in terms of which drugs are going to be prescribed. So anyway, I'm unfortunate. My point was about the drug thing is just I don't think Americans know how different that is from the rest of the world. That it like we don't. So there's this whole culture of masking the symptoms of really in a lot of cases an unhappy life that has led to lifestyle issues that need then drugs, depression or all kinds of physical things, and a lot from just lack of movement. Not to overdiagnose that, but
I mean, we're not doctors, but I know I go in and out of funks like anybody else, and more often than not, it's usually food related. It's lack of exercise. And that's usually 2 of my biggest causes. Like if something I'm not feeling right, I just have to step back and look like, oh, I've been eating like crap lately. Oh, I've been so worried about work. I haven't taken my time to get exercise. And, that's when you get into a good space, you don't get your morning exercise. You feel down the rest of the day. And I feel like a lot of the world doesn't realize how much better you can feel just from eating better, which I know is hard. Trust me, I'm a large man and I struggle. I'm 40, I've been struggling my whole life, but I have my good times, I have my bad times, and usually when I clean my diet up, I get back to the gym just mentally. I mean, it's just 100% difference in me, and I know that from experience, but a lot of people don't because they've never even tried to meditate. They've never tried to work out. They're too busy eating and hoping some commercial will cure their depression. And unfortunately, we've sold drugs to our country instead of actual cures.
Yes, well said. Yeah. And I think that the yoga practice, one of the things it does though is it gives you the kind of insight that you just, I mean, in terms of when you're able to sort of stop and go inside for a moment, whatever, however you want to call it, it starts to make, for me at least, make it more clear what I need to do off my yoga mat with my life. Like, why did I eat that? Like all of a sudden, or the way that I was feeling anxiety about something. So many times this has happened where on my yoga mat, it's just like, oh my God, that's not actually a problem. like, what was I so worried about? And it's just because things sort of fall into place when you just shut up for a minute, your mind, and just stop, because we have all of these cycles of thinking around everything, and sometimes just the familiarity of the cycles will just keep the mind churning, useless, unnecessarily. And so just having that pause, it takes me a while to get those wheels of repeated negative thinking. It takes a while for them to get started up again after I've had a pause. And so anyway, just to sum kind of everything up about the 20 years that I just went through, is most of my career was focused on teaching people how to teach this stuff. And then after that kind of awakening where I came home, I forgot to tell you about the awakening thing. So I tried to get a job with like a company, which I haven't done. I've never really done that in my life, like had what we call a legit job. I mean, I've been employed, but I'm almost 60, and like it's time to like get like a thing with like a contract, one of those things that I hear that people have.
Right.
Friends that have these jobs. So I tried for about a year to get one, and it just wasn't working out for lots of reasons. Like one reason I think is my resume was just formatted wrong for 6 months, but you know, that's water under the bridge. And so I got hired a couple of times briefly, and it just really wasn't working out for lots of reasons. I didn't like it either. It turned out I hate being told what to do. I didn't know that because nobody had really done it. And I know that you have to do what people tell you to do sometimes. And I do something, like with my teacher I did, but I don't want to do what people say just because they're paying me to do what they say. And that's a problem for a person that wants a job. Because that is literally what a job is where
told what to do.
Pays to do what they say. Like if I employed somebody, that's what I would want. So anyway, it wasn't working out and I was getting really frustrated, really super frustrated. And I hadn't been practicing yoga for a while. And I had been trying to practice, and it just wasn't like, there are all these different techniques. I like sequences and approaches, and you know, I know lots of them, and none of them were working. And then I was so frustrated, and I thought, just do just the very bare, so anyway, let me back up a little bit. The way that I would get to these deep states of quiet and solitude before required quite a bit of work first, like doing some physical stuff, doing some breath stuff, and then having this state of meditation. And the practice that I did to get there took a lot of skill. Like it was stuff that I'd learned over the years. And that's what I'd been trying to do that wasn't working for me at that time. Because, you know, I have history with all those things. So it was sort of like it was pulling me back into my past. And for whatever reason, it wasn't working. And so I thought, why don't I just not do any of that? How about if I just don't do any of that and just do the part that I really like, where I go inside really deeply? Like that's all I'm going to do. Yeah. And I've never done that. I've been practicing for almost 30 years and I've actually never thought to try that. And so I did. I went and got on my mat and I closed my eyes and I like took my focus inside. And because I've done it a lot in other contexts, I was able to do it. And immediately, like, I mean, it might have taken a minute, but that day, you know, in the first pose, I got into a state of deep quiet, and all of the frustration I had been feeling up to that point was resolved. Like, and it also became clear to me on that day. I don't know if it was that day. It may have been a few days later, because that kept happening each day. So I was doing that each day, and it made it really clear to me that is what I need to do now, is teach people how to do that. Yeah. And so that's what the Yoga Starter Course is. So I don't want people to think, oh, to do this stuff that the Jameses on this interview are talking about, to get to this point where you're having this mental clarity, I have to do all this stuff. It sounds kind of hard. And so what I want people to know is that they don't have to, that it's, so we start in the course by learning how to lie down and relax. And so then that's all. It's 5 minutes. And on the second day, we learned how to do this with our arms. And then I don't know what's on the third day, but I mean, it's a little more because you're holding a strap and it's a shoulder opener and you do this other thing. But it's super easy stuff. And the objective of the course is that at the end of it, people can, when they're ready to do their yoga practice, they know what to do. Like they know what to do for how they are feeling that day. They have a lot of things that they can choose from. They may just sit, they may lie down and listen to a guided relaxation. There are about 6 or 7 of those in the course. And so the way the course works is that it's a 28-day course. And what I've learned, so I just launched it 2 months ago to a test group, and many of them have completed it. What I've learned is that I expected people to do it every day for 28 days. And what I learned is that almost nobody wants to do it that way. They want to do it and take breaks. Some people just do it on the weekend. Some people do a few in a row. But everybody, when they do it, they tend to do what I have designated as a 1-day portion. So so what you do on a day that you've decided to do it is you get these 3 short little lessons, like 1 to 2 minutes. One of them is to think about, one of them is to know about, and one of them is to do. And so the think about is some sort of concept that's just good to know about habit changing or the value of having a technique and like what the objective of, concepts like that, so that people, one thing with adult learners that's important is that they need to understand why something's important before they learn it. Like, why should I? And so in the to think videos, I'm trying to explain why in the other things, why we're doing things the way that we're doing. And so that's a short 1 to 2 minute thing. And then the next one is to know. And so in to know, I introduce the new thing that we're going to do that day. So on the first day, I said we lie down. There's actually a name for that, and there's a reason for it. And so in the to know video, I sort of explain that. Like, why are we starting with this? Why is this important? And so that's sort of a documentary style, 2-minute documentary about a pose or a technique. And then to do is where you have all of the things that have been taught so far in the course, in the to know things, that you can choose from to do. And those are guided experiences of that thing. So where the to know video explains it, because it's hard to teach something, especially if somebody's going to listen to a video 10 times before they know it. I don't want to be adding commentary about, like, when I was 12 years old and I learned, what a cobra was. And, I remember that when I first started doing yoga, I did it with videos because it was hard to get access to yoga. And there was this teacher, and he made a joke on the video. He actually said something that really bothered me. Do you want to know what it was? It was, I'm going to tell you. It's a pose where you're like bringing your leg up like this, and I could barely do it. Like, it was really hard. And when you're in the pose suffering, the man goes, "Now smile for this leg." And it really bothered me. And then you go through the whole thing and you're doing the other side, and he goes, "Now we have to smile for this leg." And like every time I did the pose, I would think, "Oh my God, he's going to say the other leg in a minute." And I would be tense about it the whole time. So anyway, now when I do the guided, when I've ever made guided videos that you're going to actually do while you're practicing, I leave all that stuff out. So I put all that stuff in the to know video about, like, what you should know about this pose before we go through it. So that's it. That's a day. Is these 3? It's 2 to 4 new videos that between them accomplish those things. And so as you go through each day, the library of things that you've already learned about increases. And so by the end of it, it's about, I think it's about 15 physical poses. And then there are several guided breathing practices, and there are several guided meditations, different kinds of meditations, and they're all short. And so, so you can accomplish all of this committing to 15 minutes a day. And it goes on for 28 days. And then you have access to the course afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I love the concept of you breaking it down, because, like I said, a lot of what I learned is either from like a free class at the gym or from a video, and you don't quite understand why you're doing it until months later, when it kind of, you feel the effects. Because the part I struggled with is the breathing, because you first start doing yoga, it's kind of intense sometimes, like holding yourself up in certain poses. I'm just struggling to do it, and they're like, "Breathe in." I'm like, I can't even breathe at all right now. So like it took that couple months to get my breath into alignment with the stretches. And once I did, it was just a game changer for me, because you don't realize the difference that it makes, but at the same time, they're not teaching you that. Like, you're just like borderline about to fall down and kind of angry sometimes, because, like, all right, breathe in. Like, I can't breathe in. Like, I can't breathe at all right now. And like, there's nobody to
understand.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love that you're breaking it down into smaller lessons, because it's overwhelming. It's either you think too little of it or you think too much of it. In my opinion, when I talk to people about yoga, it's either, "Oh, that's a waste of time, I can stretch by myself," or "That's way too hard, I don't want to fall in front of people." Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was embarrassed my first month, and we have Tammy on our team, who's not going to say her age, but she's into Pilates, and she just got into that the last year, and she was the same thing. Like, oh, it's so embarrassing, but now you can't get her to stop talking about it. And she got into a car accident recently, and she's in a lot better shape. And the doctor told her, had she not been going to Pilates this past year, that accident might have caused a lot more severe damage, and she could be in a really bad situation right now. So
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like much, and people think too little or too much. So you breaking it down, I think is going to be huge. And I think even like someone like me, who's, I'd still say a beginner, because I mean, let's face it, I've never done anything besides, the basic poses, but I'm interested in signing up for this because I'd like to see your version, like how you break it down, because I've never had anybody do that before.
My job is done here. So also, because you're local, and I guess the people watching are local as well, I'm going to do, since I launched the course, we've added a live event that I'm going to do in St. Leonard in August. So it's
nice.
actually going to be two Saturday mornings, 9 to 12. And what I'm going to do there is I'm going to go through the things that are taught in the course in greater detail, and it'll be about 20 minutes per thing, per pose or technique. And we'll take questions about things, but help people customize them if they have questions about it, and just different. I am mindful when I'm doing the videos to not add extra stuff because people will be watching them repeatedly. So this will be an opportunity for all the extra stuff. And so it's going to be live, but it's also going to be live streamed at the same time, and it'll be available on demand afterwards. And so we have packages where you can do just the online, and that's all you get. And that starts at right now at $50 until July 15th, and then it's $60 after that. But then you also can do the online plus this event, which means you can either come to it live, or you can live stream it, or you can or have it on demand. So you get all three. You don't have to choose which one. And then the third option that I haven't even mentioned is that we have online consults also available to people that are in the course. So there's a third package where you get 3 online consults with me, one-on-ones. If you want me to see something, if there's a specific issue that you want to work with. What my course does is it teaches this really basic, just the objective is just that you have a practice, And so once people have a practice, they may want to take it in different directions, like make it more athletic or make it more therapeutic or more meditative. And so I'm available to help you do that. In the future, I'll have courses for those things. This is just the first of what will be many courses that I'm doing. Anyway, so there's that third option as well to do the consults. But even if you get the basic, just the online, we have a chat. There's chat on the site and in the course that I get right away on my phone, no matter where I am. And students use it, and I love it so much. So while they're working in the course, they may have a question, and it might even just be something technical about logging into the site or something. But we do have that. What I've tried to do, because the first couple decades of my teaching was all live, really, and transitioning to being digital, which I love, you lose some things, and one of them is a sense that you're seen, I think, by the educator. And so the chat used to be quite difficult to have on a site, to have live chat, and it's really easy now. And so that has brought a whole new dimension to it, that I'm able to talk to the students. So make a long story short, even if you get just the online version, you still have access to me with any questions that you might have through the chat thing.
So is the chat thing a private thing between me and you, or is it like for the whole community to kind of talk with each other?
Oh no, it's private. It's
okay.
Just, it's like a text conversation, like a support. If you were chatting with support, it's that.
Okay.
But I'm the support. It's me.
Just throwing an idea out there. I belong to a bunch of different things, and unfortunately, social media is a big part of my career. So that's why I'm on this all the time. But I think it might be a good idea for you to like set up like a private Facebook group. That way, the people that are part of your class can interact with each other, and then you'd be part of it.
We do have one. I just haven't told anybody about it yet.
Oh, sorry, I
I
didn't mean to
have
ruin your
my
secrets.
incarnation. So my company is right now it's just my name, but I'm building a bigger project called my yoga practice, and I'm going to be shifting my stuff over to that soon.
Oh, nice.
And I have a Facebook page already, my yoga practice, that has 11,000 people from before before I quit.
Yep.
Before I
Got
quit.
that in the comments. So if anybody like to check it out, go to the comments. You got all of his websites, his Facebook groups, and his email. So you can reach out to him directly.
James Brown Live is the Facebook that's active right now that I am really using where you would see about this. But I think having a Facebook group for people that are actually engaged in the content, which is what you suggested, is a great idea. And I don't have that. And we will. And I shouldn't have even mentioned the other Facebook page.
Yeah, I just, like you said, you're promoting community. So like if you have everyone together to talk and share their failures, share their victories, that kind of helps promote it as well and keeps people going. You like to hear what other people are going through,
and that's another thing was that I lost by I practice alone at home, and I have for a very long time. But I went to classes for a long time, and having other people that know what you're doing, like with your practice, is really motivating. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, not just like seeing growth, because like you, majority of what I did was at home on YouTube, because one, you're just embarrassed. Two, you don't think that people want you in that class because, I'm a younger guy and you don't see too many younger guys in there. But now that I go regularly to the same class with the same teacher, it's like a group. I know those 20 people. We share what's going on in our lives. We share what we're having problems with, what we're not having problems with. So I think that as much as we can get from being live video, that community, just being able to connect with each other, I think is a huge part of just life in general.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah. So I love what you're doing. I love that you're breaking it down. I'm glad we had a chance to talk. I do have to circle back to this though, because I mean, we talked about how you said you had a boring lifestyle, yet here you are traveling the world with Red Hot Chili Peppers, going back to the White House. And
I mean, it's boring now, but I love it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is so interesting is when I was a kid, we had a garden, and it was a vegetable garden, like so many people here do. And my stepfather really liked it a lot. Like he would just sit there and stare at it, and I thought, like, it's so boring. Like I remember when I was a kid thinking, like, that's so boring. Like, why do you want this? Like, it's so stupid. Like, I wanted to go to the city and like.
Yep.
And now I have a garden, and there's nothing that I get more pleasure from than just sitting there and staring at it and having a boring life. Like, I get it now. Like, this is, I think, I guess to sort of sum up one kind of thread in this journey for me has been that I really spent years inside the homes and the lives of the people that the whole world emulates. Like generally speaking, people they think that they would like that lifestyle. And I'm not saying like it's a bad lifestyle. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's very, very comfortable. But this is, I think, the people that are living this life here I think this is really what people want, is this kind of grounding and this kind of, I mean, there's a reason that not everybody moves to LA. And so that has been really a big shift for me. And I think a lot of it is just getting older, is that I understand now the extraordinary satisfaction that can come from having what may appear to be a boring life.
Yeah. But I think you learned that through your life. Like you did it all. And we were talking before we started of, my siblings have children at young ages. So they were parents from, the day they got out of high school. But I was like you, I was a bartender in DC. I was a bartender in Virginia. So for 20 years, I lived the party life, and I had a great time like doing it. I'm not going to lie. It was a lot of fun, but you also, at the end of it, when people are so, oh, I wish I could do what you do. You go out whenever you want. You don't have this and that. It gets kind of empty and shallow after a while. Like you can only party but for so long. And I can't
Yes.
imagine being on the road. Like I'm very all about my family. Like that's the reason I'm in Maryland, because this is where my family is. And I couldn't be on the road all the time. Like that sounds exhausting and terrible.
I bet if you were on tour with the Chili Peppers, you could be on the road.
It would be the best couple years of my life, but I'm sure, I'm sure even the Chili Peppers, I bet they're probably,
they know how to make things extremely comfortable.
oh, I bet. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like we need to have you back one of these shows just to talk about the Chili Pepper tour.
I would love to. It was, I have nothing but good things to say about them.
Yeah.
I didn't say, when I went back to LA, as I said, and I taught them for 10 years, and
that's crazy.
In their house, like they all live near each other in Malibu, and I would go from one house to the other sometimes. And I also taught Rick Rubin, their producer. I taught Rick's girlfriend. I have to correct that. I taught Rick's girlfriend, Amanda. I taught Rick 3 times, and I saw Rick a lot. But he was one person. I don't know if anybody listening knows who he is, but
if you don't know Rick Rubin, you don't know music.
He's one person. So I've worked with all these really, really famous people, and he scares the shit out of me. He's so cool. He's seriously one of the coolest people ever, and he's just so mellow. And like, he has a look, and when you see him, it's like, oh my God, that's him. So he's one person that I would start stammering and stuttering around, which probably didn't make me a very good yoga teacher. He could have been my yoga teacher, I'm sure. He studied with masters, but he amused me and let me teach him a few times.
And I mean, what a great experience that is, because I mean, if you don't know Rick Rubin, I mean, he's been a part of music since the 80s. Like, I mean, from rap groups to rock groups to the biggest albums ever put out.
Boys. And like I remember being in his house and hearing Adele demos before. And I was like, who the fuck is this? I was like, this lady can really sing. Who is it? Is this lady from England? And then it turned out to be Adele.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, just your lifestyle is exciting and fun. And I mean, I've met celebrities just because of what I do around here. And when you get to meet them and you actually like them afterwards, that's just incredible. And I mean, I only see the Chili Peppers and interviews, and I've been a huge fan of their music forever. But Anthony Kiedis, Flea, like every time they just seem like such good, humble people. But that also kind of goes back to their journey, because I'm sure they probably weren't that pleasant to be around in their 20s, because they were pretty wild people.
Yeah, I didn't. I started working with them when they were in their 30s, and one thing I can say about all the celebrities I've worked with is that they're all seeking a yoga practice. So and also they all respect me as a teacher. So they're all really. I've only had really positive experiences with them. So I haven't seen any like celebrity breakdowns or anything. But
well, I mean, I'm sure you just got to see their growth. Like you met them in their 30s, and what are they, 50, 60 now?
Yeah, I think that they're about 6. I'm 58, and I think that Flea and Anthony are 2 years older than me.
And I mean, just the fact that I saw them a year or two ago, the fact that they can still rock out the way they do. I mean, Flea's all over the stage, like jumping and diving, and like you're almost 60. And a lot of that's got to be to the yoga.
But he did some very good yoga along the way.
Yep. No, I mean that's got to be it. It's not.
I mean, I was on tour with them and watched. They were at their physical. I mean, they haven't really diminished since then, but the athleticism that they did on stage. John was in the band then, and John's super flexible. To be in an arena with 25,000 people and see them with their shirts off, and I was making that tricep muscle firm in, and this release earlier that day, and like that I was part of a team that was that was making this astonishing entertainment event happen with people that were grounded, through the tour. They weren't doing drugs or like I don't know how people So I was on stage on the tour. They let their team come onto the stage on the edges every night, and of course I did, and it was really fun. Just being that person on the stage, having nothing to do with the performance, is a huge adrenaline boost. And So for them, where they are the thing that people are screaming for, to get through that, I think this is part of the reason that celebrities have worked with me a lot. Is I think I really empathize with this. That it's a lot to be the object of that much attention. And so anyway, it was exciting to be part of the support that made them able, especially that they were all known, to be drug addicts in the past, and they were all in recovery, and that they were clean and really enjoying themselves and really enjoying the tour, and staying healthy. So yeah, I'd be happy to come back and talk for hours and hours anytime.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I've always wished I could do is be on the stage during one of these like massive shows, because I can't imagine the energy, like
it's fun.
What they experience, and so few people in this world get to experience playing in front of 50 to 100,000 people. Like, it's just got to be something you can't even imagine.
Yeah, I don't think people ever get sick of it. I think something I used to do before the shows. I remember before they would come on stage, we would be standing there, and I shouldn't confess to this, but sometimes I would just walk across the stage because you know how everybody claps when when they're waiting for the band, and then somebody walks and you're like, oh my God, it's them. I did that a couple times.
Why not? You gotta have fun. You're on tour with them. I'm sure they don't mind.
And one time, one of them really excited. My name is James Brown, as you know. And the Chili Peppers love James Brown a lot. They're a funk band. Of course, they love him. And so they loved having a yoga teacher named James Brown. One of the really exciting moments on tour with them was they played a James Brown song. And at the end, Anthony said to a sold out arena, our yoga teacher wrote that song. Isn't that great?
That's something. I mean, yeah, that's memories that most people will never even fathom. Like, that's
I'll
incredible.
leave you with one more little story from the tour, just very quickly. One of the things I got to do was I could take backstage passes and give them to anybody I wanted to.
Yeah.
So, it's surprisingly hard to find people that you want to give backstage passes to. You think it would be easy, but it's not. So what I would do is how in an arena, the people near the stage are dancing and going crazy, and then as you get further and further away, there's less of that.
Yeah.
And in the top, everybody's just sitting. I would go to whoever was the furthest from the stage and dancing, and give them backstage passes, because they were troopers, because they didn't care where they're seated.
Yeah. Those are the true fans.
And they learn what their enthusiasm sometimes gets them. Sometimes
that's awesome.
Sometimes it's rewarded. It was so fun. It was usually like 12-year-old girls, and that was really fun, because they would go completely bananas.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Are you serious? Look, yeah, it's real.
Yeah. I'm sure most people wouldn't believe you if you gave it to them. Like, okay, sure.
Oh, no, they would come. And it would be so fun to then see them later backstage.
Yeah.
And the band was always really, really nice to them.
Glad to hear it. It's always fun to hear that people you admire are actually decent people, to say the least. A lot of times they are not, but we're all different. We all have our own struggles, so I try not to judge too many people too many ways, but
it's good.
I love hearing, positive stories about people that you kind of looked up to most of your life.
Awesome. Well, happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's been a pleasure, James. I'm glad you're back in Calvert County, where your roots have you held down. Clearly, you traveled the world, lived outside of the world, which also gives you a great perspective. A lot of people don't even get a chance. I didn't leave the country until I was 34 years old. And I think just that, living outside of the country probably is just great for your mental health, just to see the differences of being here and somewhere else.
It is very eye-opening.
Yeah. All right, James. Well, I will be signing up. I'm going to get my mom to sign up because I've been pushing her into doing something, and she's just too nervous not being in a gym for her entire life. So I think this is going to be a great program for her.
I designed it with her in mind. Tell her.
Yep.
And there's a discount by 15.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be a great push. I hope other people take advantage of this. You get to learn from the yoga instructor that has taught presidential candidates, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rick Rubin. Come on now. If you like music, Rick Rubin has made a difference in your life.
All right. Thank you very much, James.
Yep, you as well, James. I will be in touch, and thanks for joining us. If anyone has any questions or would like to find out more, please reach out to all the information in the comments, or if you can't find it, I'd be more than happy to connect you. And as always, if you have anyone that would want to join the show next week or the week after, reach out to me. We're always scheduling more people, and we love to spread the word. Thanks again, James, and thanks for everybody watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.